There's been a lot of hardware news in the past week, and most of it has been Intel, but there's been some AMD news as well. There's a lot of industry news in general right now. So we've got, of course, Principled Technologies that we've already discussed at this point. But just to recap it briefly, we'll be going over that again. AIB partners attempting to sidestep tariffs that we talked about previously. AMD looking to potentially regain 30% CPU market share in fourth quarter of 2018. And then there's also just general news about DRAM prices, 9900K, Z399, and things of that sort. Before that, this video is brought to you by EVGA's RTX 2080 Ti XE Ultra video card. We recently used this to beat our Founders Edition overclocking results with its additional power target headroom and cooling capabilities. The XE Ultra uses a 2.7 extra thick heatsink for quiet operation under low loads, but also maintains higher clocks on average over the FE model. Learn more at the link in the description below. So quick update on our Principled Technologies news item. The company emailed us notes for clarification after the interview where we got some additional answers, and this was after they consulted their technical staff who worked on testing. The GPU model used, if you're curious, was the Gigabyte Aorus 1080 Ti, and we have a specific model number for that linked in the article in the description below. We have a full article for follow-up interview information from this discussion with PT. Number of test benches, they ended up using 16, so it was 8 duplicated. PT's response to unfair cooler arrangement was as follows. Only the 2700X came with a cooler, the rest required a cooler to be added. AMD certainly did not seem to think their cooler was inadequate, so it seemed a reasonable choice. Of course, our argument is, well, we disagree with this still. As an independent test outlet, PT really shouldn't be taking AMD's word for much of anything, especially because it doesn't matter anyway. You should be equalizing all variables, and the CPU cooler is one of those. And it's a suffocated case. We still think it's not good testing to use an AMD stock cooler versus a bunch of Noctua coolers on the Intel products. Even if AMD thinks it's good enough, you might not be getting full boost. So we disagree with that answer, but they did at least provide one. Memory selection and 64 gigabyte questions, and you can check the interview for those specifically, but they stated, we chose Corsair memory due to past experience with it being very reliable. We chose the specific model to be able to get matching to 2 16 gigabyte packages in the quantity necessary for this project. We want to minimize disk access while providing a RAM amount that seemed appropriate for high-end processors, and went on a bit. So this one, we also disagree. Disk access is not really going to be happening. You're talking about hundreds of megabytes max for texture files, never going to be near 64 gigabytes for gaming, and this was 100% a gaming workload test. So 32 gigabytes seems adequate. It would allow better timings. It would allow higher frequencies to be more easily attained with those, quote, lower end processors. GTA quality settings, we also got an answer on this, and we published all of them in the article if you want to know what quality settings they used. And then PT also provided some additional comments where they addressed a number of inquiries, this is their quote, regarding the testing methodology that they used and the potential for bias in favor of Intel. And that is a document we published on our website as well, but they have a full document PDF over there that discusses memory speeds, memory choice for capacity, cooler choice. They talk about the use of game mode on the AMD Ryzen 7 2700X, so that was pretty important as well. And for that one, they said that some of the inquiries showed concern over the use of the Ryzen utility and the number of active cores in AMD-based systems, and they noted that for Threadripper systems, they saw improved performance with game mode, and so applied it to all processors, but they are now doing additional testing. So that is for the AMD systems in creator mode, at which point they'll be updating with new results. So that's it for the PT update. Check the article linked below for more information on that one. Next one, AIB partners are attempting to sidestep tariffs. So this was published on CNBC and on TechSpot, a couple other places, but CNBC was the most interesting just because it's a pretty big mainstream outlet, obviously. So we don't typically see things from our space reported there. And this one in particular is a hot topic because video cards were just really expensive and have come down. We reported on the tariffs and the expected impact to component prices. We were just reporting on what manufacturers like EVGA, NZXT, others off record, some on record, but we reported on all that, and everyone's expecting a 10 to 25% price bump for consumers in accordance with the tariffs as well when they go into effect. So amidst the new tariffs, though, To possibly mitigate the tariff impact, AMD partners are looking into relocating to Taiwan or Mexico for some of their manufacturing, and NVIDIA spokesperson confirmed that some of their partners were already moving affected production outside of China. Quote, "We are working closely with our customers and partners to mitigate potential impacts related to the tariffs on AMD-based products. From all that we know today, we do not expect the U.S. tariffs to have a material impact on our business." So this is both NVIDIA and AMD looking into this. And as we've said, the continuation of these tariffs will almost certainly impact the prices you pay in the U.S., especially in Canada, almost certainly as well. And the rest of the world might follow, just because the U.S. is the largest consumer of this type of technology. So then, what we're looking at this point is, let's just kind of recap a few things in case there's still some questions about this. Almost everything's made in China, especially computer components. All the parts that make the parts that you buy are made in China or Japan or Taiwan. And so the supply chain is entirely in Asia at this point. Manufacturing will almost certainly stay there, notwithstanding this Mexico development that has been discussed on CNBC's posting. And the problem here is, as manufacturers try to sidestep these tariffs, if they even think it's worth it, they will end up probably moving a lot of their production to Taiwan. But if it moves to Mexico, you've got a supply chain change as well. That'll take some time, could take years to build it, tool up, and get supply chain rolling for factories in countries away from Asia. So that's a consideration as well, which will also impact price, of course, because tooling up all these new factories isn't free. The labor price will be different outside of China. Taiwan has manufacturing facilities. Gigabyte has a factory there. Inwin, Li, and Li have factories there. But all three of those companies do most of their production in China. And Taiwan is really, those factories are not equipped for huge volumes like we would need in this space to make up for a lack of production in China. So most of the production is in China, is what I'm saying. And it's not like it's low quality parts either. I mean, they're fully capable of producing both good and bad parts, as you know from buying computer hardware. But the big thing here is that if there is a shift, it'll take a while. Some of the manufacturers we've spoken with have indicated concern that the tariff policy could flip or be reverted in the time it takes to build and tool up a new factory. So that's a concern as well. And anyway, we'll keep an eye on it and see if anything changes. But it's, I don't know, if the tariffs are sidestepped or not applicable to PC hardware, of course, I think most of us would appreciate not paying more for this stuff, although we'll see what happens. AMD could regain 30% CPU market share in fourth quarter 2018. So this one is something that popped up from Digitimes, where AMD is continuing to ride momentum of their new Ryzen products. And it's a return to competition for AMD. Intel's trying to come back and doing so in ways that they wouldn't have without AMD's competition. And many of the financial press websites have praised AMD's stock prices and sales as of late, with some saying that AMD has achieved sales parity with Intel. A report from Digitimes suggests that this forward momentum, especially given Intel's current woes, could see AMD claw back as much as 30% of the market from the incumbent Intel. Granted, that would be a pretty big feat to achieve, and a few of the market experts that were consulted have dispensed their skepticism about that prediction. While it's reasonable to expect AMD's stock and sales to continue to rise, as well as capitalize on Intel's misfortunes, a 30% market share to happen by this year is probably pushing the edge of reality, although it is certainly something that can happen within the next months. More Intel news here. OEMs have been a little unhappy with Intel lately, so we've been talking about shortages of 14nm process and how it's a massive impact to Intel's production capabilities, to the point that they're moving chipset production back to older process technology and making old to new chipsets to try and relieve some of that 14nm supply constraint. And now OEMs have expressed some concern with their relationship with Intel and ability to get parts. Intel is widely expected to undersupply the CPU market in the last quarter of this year, but that shortage could extend into mid-2019 if reports from Compal are to be believed. Compile is an ODM for companies such as Apple, Dell, Lenovo, and more. Additionally, many vendors have lowered their growth expectations for Q4 and revised their product roadmaps, as Intel hasn't given clear signs as to when they expect the undersupply to subside. Moreover, it's starting to appear like OEMs are becoming somewhat disenchanted with Intel. Short supply, high prices, and disrupted product planning and roadmaps have left them looking at other options. And we've even confirmed some of this independently, where some of our contacts at the board partners have expressed concerns with Intel's organization for all of the new chipsets. Intel's woes have created a unique landscape for AMD. AMD has an opportunity to supplant Intel in nearly every sector at this point, although it's far from doing so. So we have to keep reality in mind here. Intel still owns almost all of the server market for one, and EPYC is slow to get adoption, although it is getting adopted. AMD has also been making inroads in the client computing sector, but AMD stands to pull back some of the lucrative server and OEM markets as well. Hewlett-Packard already suggests and expects that 1 out of every 3 units they ship will contain an AMD processor, and that includes Hewlett-Packard Enterprise's suggestion to move to EPYC for some of their clients. HP has also begun recommending Threadripper for some of their enterprise clients due to a lack of Xeon parts. Notebook OEMs are stuck waiting on Whiskey and Amber Lake and may become very interested in AMD's newest Raven Ridge APUs instead. Intel's shortages are expected to disrupt notebook shipments in a big way, and vendors could look to AMD to recover their product roadmaps and launch Windows. All in all, it's probably good to be AMD right now, and competition's returning in a pretty big way. It wouldn't be a proper hardware news video without an update on DRAM pricing. A recent report from DRAM Exchange predicts DRAM will drop 5% in the last quarter of this year due to high bit supply but relatively low bit demand. Overall, the DRAM market continues to weaken, and both the PC and server segments are expected to see a 5% drop in prices. So just a quick one here on the 9th gen, which it's really 8th gen, but it's called 9000 series, because it's still Coffee Lake. It's 14 nanometer plus now though, so it's double plus, but we don't know if it's double plus on good just yet. So the 9900K has new packaging, and it's, I guess, a response to Threadripper's superfluous packaging as well. We don't really think the packaging is a good investment for either of these products. If you like spending $20+ on a box, though, well, you get a cool box, I guess. You can probably buy one on eBay, though, after people are done opening it. But these things, talked about this before, where people really like the box, and they say things like, I'm willing to spend $10 on a box. But it's more than that, because now you have bigger, weirder-shaped boxes filling warehouses and shelves at retailers where they have valuable space that they need for other things, because they're paying for that space every month. So anyway, there's a new package. Intel's trying to do something different. They're trying to compete with AMD. It does kind of feel like the two companies are kind of mimicking each other to a point of being annoying at this point, but at least they're doing something. It's just that I kind of wish it would be more on the product side than on the packaging side. But either way, it's clearly a response to the Threadripper packaging for Threadripper 2, which was also tremendously wasteful in terms of consumer dollars and space, but of course something that people seem to want anyway for display purposes or something like that. It's just not something we typically care about. We typically care about value and performance, not marketing, which a box is ultimately marketing. As expected, the ripple effects of Intel's 14 nanometer shortage are materializing at this point. Specifically, 8th gen SKUs are starting to see price hikes, with the i7-8700K approaching $400. Also, the i5-8400 is seeing prices of $205 to $225, with Amazon being currently out of stock. Newegg stock isn't faring much better, with the i7-8700K going for $400 and the i5-8400 being out of stock. This ebb and flow with prices in stock will likely continue into the holiday season at this point. For those planning an Intel-based build, it may be wise to wait and see what happens with the 9000 series, the Coffee Lake refresh, and what kind of stock and sales materialize for either those parts or for the older ones. Last bit of news here, there's a rumor that the Intel Z399 chipset might accompany a Coffee Lake or a Skylake X refresh. We already know that there are X500 boards coming out, and we have some footage of those, or 599 boards. from the Intel event. So there's that Dominus board. There's a new Gigabyte board. We have footage of them. They're massive, and their VRMs are insane. And one of the boards even has 224-pin PSU hookups and then 6 EPS 12-volt headers on it, a mixture of 4 and 8 pins, I think. They're big boards, but those are certainly coming to market because Intel had them at the event. Z399 was also discussed recently, and this could be a potential successor as well for HETT. This is some rumor item that popped up on Hot Hardware and PC Builders Club, but it's supposed to compete with the Threadripper X series. It would use LGA 2066 or something like that sockets, whereas the X599 series uses the XCC and LGA 3647 sockets for those 28-core Xeons that are coming out. So that's it. That's it for this one. Mostly industry news here. And as always, subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/GamersNexus. Helps out directly. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick one of our shirts, mod mats, or other items. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.